Certain frameworks come into fashion and everyone is like, okay, now we are doing business model canvas, and then we are doing it for a year or two, and then it's gone, and then there comes a new one, and everyone is promising you by using only this framework you will become innovative. I was like, it cannot be that easy that one framework is solution for everything. And if it was, everyone would be doing it. That was one first thing. And the second thing is you have to have the whole organization involved, not just few people who have learned a few frameworks. So those two things were the main reason why I wanted to write the book and have a holistic view on the innovation, individuals and groups and organization itself, not just one small part.
Welcome to Everyday Innovation, your go-to podcast for enhancing your creative and entrepreneurial process. I'm Jordan DeVecchia, a multi-passionate creator entrepreneur, venture studio co-founder, and business designer and advisor. Here we live at the intersection of creativity, strategy, and personal development. Join me for inspiring conversations, actionable practices, and insight infusions designed to shift your mindset and empower you with tools and resources to create impactful ventures. Get ready to take your ideas to the next level and innovate with purpose. Welcome back to Everyday Innovation. Today, I'm joined by Barbara Salopek, founder of Vinco and author of Future Fit Innovation. She's based in Bergen, Norway, and Barbara has spent over 20 years helping organizations build innovation cultures that actually last. She holds a double master's degree from the Norwegian School of Economics, and she also lectures at BI Norwegian Business School. So we are here to learn today. Barbara, I'm so excited that you're here, and we're going to chat about your new book. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Jordan. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me in your beautiful podcast.
Of course. It's Everyday Innovation. So, of course, you are going to be here, and we want to learn a lot more from you. So I'd love to start with just diving right on in. Why does this book exist? You've spent decades in this space, and I'm sure you've been seeing some gaps. So why Future Fit Innovation? What inspired you to take the time to write this book and, change the narrative a little bit on innovation?
Thank you. I love this question because yes, I was thinking for a long time about some things within innovation that were bothering me, and one of the things was that certain frameworks come into the fashion, and everyone is like, okay, now we are doing business model canvas, and then we are doing it for a year or two, and then it's gone, and then there comes a new one, and everyone is promising you by using only this framework you will become innovative, and then not big things happen, after that, And then I was like, it cannot be that easy that one framework is solution for everything. And if it was, everyone would be doing it. That was one first thing. And the second thing is like, in order to every innovation works, innovation processes, you have to have the whole organization involved, not just few people who have learned a few frameworks. So those two things were the main reason why I wanted to write the book and kind of have a holistic view on the innovation, like individuals and groups and organization itself, not just one small part.
Yes, loved your analogy of it being more of an ecosystem. So they're all kind of speaking to one another and then also at different levels. I know you break that down sort of, and from maybe a high level standpoint, can you tell us a little bit more about those?
Yeah, so when I was contemplating about innovation and thinking in my head, so I was also reflecting, everyone is talking about this should help you, but when you are introducing something in your organization, you have also lots of barriers. And in order for organizations to be successful, you have to have individuals aligned, and individuals, they make groups, and groups make organizations. So you kind of have to have all those three, in the same direction, walking and looking at the same direction in order for innovation to succeed. And then I break it down in the book. I have 3 parts: individuals and groups and organizations. And individuals, I talk about the main barriers I think are important to name. And those are the thinking that everyone of us who is not creative, but not creative as a creative, but artistic, who doesn't feel that they are artistic, they feel they're not creative. And then that's a barrier. And then suddenly, if you said, now we are going to work with innovation, now you are going to be creative. And people are like, oh, no, not me. Not me. I like numbers, so I like this. And people get scared. And then you can't ask people to be innovative or creative if they are not comfortable with that. So you as a leader have to understand this thing, right? So that was one thing. And then second thing is functional fixedness and fixation. That also is kind of limiting us to see things around us in the different way. because as we are studying and learning and going through life, we learn what the things are for. What is the table for? What is the chair for? What is the cup for? And then we see them only those functions we have learned. We have to break this functional fixedness. We have to be able to look the objects through a different way. And how do you do that? I explain in the book, for example. But those two things I took on the individual levels that are the biggest barriers that we have to work and come over. And as a leader, the leaders have the responsibility to help individuals to break them, or at least the leader has to understand that they exist.
Yes, absolutely. Let's get into a couple of those because I think we have a lot of individuals here and I think we can build upon that as well because everything starts, it's like an atom, right? You're part of the larger group and you build that up. And I think taking ownership as like a creative leader and entrepreneur, you're setting the tone for that culture. And I loved the term that you used one time, which is you're building that innovation muscle. So I want to help
Yes.
us do that a little bit today. Let's dig into maybe those couple of concepts first, and then we can start to build upon it, like you were saying, because I think when it kind of starts with you and then it builds out, it
Mm.
creates that incredible ecosystem that you're talking about, and it takes it from you. I know you had spoken to me before about innovation is not just frameworks; it's a lot more complex. It's a lot of threading these pieces together. So I want to make sure that we build upon each one of those. So let's get into it.
You mentioned innovation muscle, which I mentioned in my book as well. And I love that because, building the muscles, it takes some skills, but also
Yes.
building the innovation muscle in organization, it goes two ways. It goes top down from the leaders because leaders have to understand the barriers that we are talking about. They have to
Mm,
understand the context. They have to understand how difficult it is or how easy it is in order to be successful to implement it. But when we talk about innovation, we know that it's much more difficult than it's easy. So they have to understand the whole context about it and its difficulties and its challenges in order to be able to manage it. And this is like we are putting it from top to the bottom. And why is it important? They also have to understand why is innovation important. But then building it, it goes bottom up. You
yes.
cannot build it if the whole organization is not part of it, because then we go to those creativity questions that you were also referring, because everyone in a company that has been working with something for a little longer time, they get deep knowledge about what they have been working with. And creativity is creating new things. And we have different domains of creativity. One of the creativity is that we all know it's artistic. If you can paint, if you can play piano, if you can sing. And then we have scientific creativity and we have everyday creativity. Every day is like solving some small issues on everyday basis at home or
Mhm.
somewhere. How do you solve those? Scientific creativity goes, you have to have a deep knowledge about something in order to create new knowledge, like scientists, researchers. But
Right.
I think that what defines scientific creativity is actually equal for all creativities. Of course, sometimes creativity comes up suddenly out of nothing, but I think much more often it comes from having a deep knowledge about something. Because also to be a good pianist, you have to have deep knowledge. When you're a painter, you also have to paint a lot and you're practicing a lot. And then again, you have a deep knowledge and interest for this field. So I think if you are in an organization, you have been there for a while, you have deep knowledge about certain area. And when you have deep knowledge about certain area, you can combine this knowledge and create some new things, like either new solutions, small improvements, and that makes you creative, right?
Right.
And it's important that this creativity doesn't stay silent, that you can voice those improvements or maybe ideas for new products or new services. But equally important, as I said, also some improvements within your own company, internal processes are equally important. So
Yes.
I think the creativity at the end is like combining, you have some knowledge, you combine it into new knowledge. That's what I say.
And I also think for many of us sometimes who we have deep domains or maybe we've switched careers or pivots, there's likely a lot of underlying threads that you have a lot of deep knowledge in. So it could be the way that you set up a certain system, right? Across different domains. And it's that beautiful, like deep knowledge that can cross different areas, even of life as well.
Yeah.
That can serve in different areas as well.
And I like that you mentioned changing industries. Actually, the research shows if you change the industry, you are even more creative because you put a different lens. It's like living in
Yes.
a different countries also makes you more creative. But why it makes you? Because you get different perspectives. living in
Right.
one, working in one place the whole life, you are looking at through the one glasses, right? Through one lens.
Yep.
And suddenly you move somewhere else and you see, okay, but they do it differently there. And then you can compare and you have rich knowledge. That's why diversity is important. That's why diversity
Yes.
is an asset and it's a resource, as long as you have the opportunity to kind of show it, of course, that it doesn't stay silent. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think a lot of people use diversity as something that they feel that they should be doing or that is equitable, which is honorable, but it's actually a huge boon for innovation because just like you were saying, it's these different perspectives, these different lenses that you can try on. And when you don't have that lived experience, it's very tough with, let's say you're developing a women's product in a room full of men, or you're developing even something that you wouldn't think would even need diversity. It's for we're doing something for pets, but then having these different experiences in the room of different people who have different lives in different countries brings that to and I know you've mentioned that in safety as well.
yes, you said it very well that if we have diversity, if it doesn't get voiced, if they don't voice their thoughts, it will not happen. It doesn't bring then those perspectives to the table. And in order this to happen, people have to feel safe. And that's
Right.
psychological safety. And then again, why is it important top leadership to understand it? Because the psychological safety is the ownership of the leader. It's the leader who sets
Right.
the tone. It's not the ownership of the company. But
Right.
within the company, you can have pockets of high and low psychological safety because it's the leader who sets the tone. So that's why it's
Right.
very important that the leaders understand their role in these things.
I think people feel even when they go into they take these on these leadership roles that somehow this organizational culture and innovation culture will happen even if they just are doing it themselves, but really there's is a very active role in setting that tone even as the individual at that space and even individuals contributing to the culture of it. So at every
Yeah.
level, really you have a in a healthy place, you have a say and you have an impact on every project and every bit of innovation that happens
And,
in
and
that group for
and
sure.
that's very important in innovation process because innovation process goes from you have to brainstorm ideas. Everyone brainstorms ideas, and then you will evaluate those ideas. Then you will maybe choose some of those that will go to the next phase, maybe to prototyping or testing them. And then you'll test them and then you will refine some of them and then you will launch at the end. But that means that throughout this whole process, people have to say what they think, like from the brainstorming. If you have
Right.
different and they are not they're afraid to say what they think and their ideas, and then later it should be nice environment, not nice, it should be safe environment that people
Mm.
can say what they think, that it's allowed to say what are good, what are positive things, that everyone shares opinions, they're brainstorming feedback also, and also it's very transparent why and how some ideas are going further. So you need this dialogue throughout the communication, throughout the whole innovation process. And if you don't have them, then if psychological safety is there, then this process will not work. You can have the perfect innovation process, but if you don't have the climate, the culture at the end, again, it's not going to work, no matter how perfect the process is.
We've talked a lot about the creativity and also like how you are contributing to that culture. But I want to get into also just the way in your own mind. We were talking about these lenses and the importance of diversity and having these different lenses, but also education and other ways that we learn functional fixedness. So can you tell us a little bit more about functional fixedness, and we can get into some fun stuff like fridge innovation, because I think these are some personal muscles that you can kind of build and expand on yourself or even like your team to learn a little bit more about. So tell us a little bit more about functional fixedness. What is that?
Absolutely, thank you. Functional fixedness, and you mentioned the schooling, because I have a part in the book where I said that mm, it's wrong to say that school killed the creativity. School doesn't kill the creativity. I think that myth has to be demystified because, as I said, having a deep knowledge gives you opportunity to combine this knowledge in a new ways. So school shouldn't be blamed for killing creativity. But what school
Mm-hmm.
does, we learn about frameworks, about the things in the school. So school is enhancing functional fixedness. This is how we are doing. This is used for that. This is the law. This gravity law is like this. So
Right.
it kind of reinforces functional fixedness. So the school should be blamed for that, I would say. There are tools how you can overcome functional fixedness because one of the most famous product managed to do that very successfully, right? Because when phones came, they were what? They were for talking, right?
Right.
Long time ago, 20 years ago, 2026, yeah, 20 years ago exactly, when iPhone came. So in the beginning, mobile phones were just for talking, right? And the
Right.
screen were for SMSs. They were not important. But what Apple did, they put the screen in the middle. They
Right.
found a feature of the phone and they said this is the most important feature. And the rest is
Right.
history today. So how do you overcome the functional fixedness? You decompose the object into smaller parts, smaller
Hmm.
features. Like on the phone, we have that keyboard and we have a screen. And then you assigned a new function to that feature. And the screen became the most important in the phone mobile industry. So this is how we have to think when we have thought about what is a table about. A table is that we sit at it, we eat dinner, we study. But maybe
Right.
if you turn it around, then maybe it can float on the river, right?
Like you were saying, when you put yourself in new domains, sometimes you think of a new way or use of something where experts in that field, maybe they
Yeah.
have the deep knowledge on what's next, but you may have
Yes.
put something together that maybe they didn't see because of the functional fixedness
Yes. They
potentially.
have deep knowledge and myopia or functional fixedness, we can call it,
Yeah.
right?
What are some ways to kind of break out of it? So like, I'm thinking to myself, I watch my toddler. So that's one way to get out of functional fixedness because you watch someone else perceive the world in an entirely new way. You start to think of, well, why couldn't it be like that? Right. But how would you suggest play around with the idea of thinking and looking at things in a new way
Or less fixed way.
or
Well,
less fixed way?
travel,
Yeah.
yes, when it comes to the travel, actually, the research says that the traveling for holidays doesn't count that much. You have to live in
Yeah.
the country more than three, hopefully best more than 6 months in order that it
Yeah.
helps you to be more. But as I said, changing the industry helps us a lot, yeah, even maybe more than changing the country. Well, I think the very how to break the functional fixedness is, I think, with small things. Like I was once long time ago in a long time ago in US, and my cousin, she asked me which ice cream I would have, and then I just went for vanilla and chocolate, and she was like, why don't you experiment? So like try to experiment on small things that it's a part of you. When I'm running, I love changing the routes because it's very easy to be, stuck in the one route. But for example, when I'm traveling for work, I go running in the new cities, and that's one of the things that I love the best because I go and run and I just explore. And I would
Yeah.
never see those places if I went for a walk or if I stayed in my room or so like the small things that you're putting yourself, stretching yourself. Okay, let's try
Mm,
this, let's try this. But of course you always have to calculate, see what the risks are and not to put
right.
yourself in too much danger. But there are so many things we can do. They're so easily, they're so in front of us when you think, oh, I shouldn't do that. Why not?
Yeah, I'm like, we probably overuse if you're in your own city, like using your GPS. Like you could
Yeah,
probably figure out your way home, but sometimes
yeah,
it's if you kind of turn it off for a second or just take it a little bit of a different turn. I've found
yeah.
neighborhoods that I've never before where I'm like, that's a really cute set of stores and I've never and like probably my GPS wouldn't take me down that road. So, yeah, that totally makes sense. It's like these everyday things that you can do. And I think, I love your metaphor of like fridge innovation. Can you talk
Yeah.
about that? Because I think we do that
Yes.
all the time. And I don't think we're realizing we're doing that.
Yeah, that's the metaphor that me and my colleague, colleague author, Melissa Bui, we came up with this together, somehow discussing things on LinkedIn. And we realized that there is something called everyday innovation or fridge innovation.
Yep.
Because when you are hungry and you have to make something to eat, and then you open the fridge and there are some things, nothing like you have some of the things, but none of things enough to make some specific recipe, right? But still in the end of the day you make something for it, you because you have enough deep knowledge about cooking that you know how to use the things, even though they
Mhm.
like you don't stand in front of the fridge and say, no, I'm missing, let's say, milk. I'm missing milk now, I cannot do this recipe. You will not
Mhm.
stay hungry, you will still make something to eat even though you're
Right.
missing. So that's all the things. Like fridge and innovation is more a term like everyday small things when you come up with the things that you didn't think about, but you come up with something that you needed and it was helpful and solution.
Absolutely. And it really shows that innovation is, like you said, I mean, It's complex because there can be a lot of moving parts between people, but a lot of it is process oriented or a way of thinking as opposed to the thing, a rocket,
Yes,
you know,
yes, and I love,
whatever else. It's more of an approach, right? An approach to,
yeah,
like you were saying, when you look in the fridge, you're not just going to say, oops, I can't innovate because I don't have the eggs, you know? And it's kind of the same
yeah.
when you apply that to a lot of different areas, right?
Yes. Yeah, I love that you mentioned the word process because
Mm,
when you said the rockets, everyone wants to have breakthrough innovations. But in
right.
order to be efficient, to be like to decrease the costs, you need to be more efficient. And in order to be more efficient, you have to have better processes. And who can do better processes than the people who have been doing it for a long time or who come from another industry and look it through a different lens? Because they know, okay, maybe we should try this one. This has been very troublesome. Here were the bottlenecks. Maybe and the everyday innovation at work as well is equally important as a breakthrough innovations because they help us to decrease the costs at the end of the day. And that's equally important, I would say.
Yes, and I also think there's a compound effect, right? So when we start
Yes.
thinking this way and we start doing these small
Right.
things, they can lead to breakthrough
Yeah. Yeah.
because I feel like in science that happens quite a bit too. We hear about the breakthrough, cure for something or a
The
new
cancer cure,
medication or
how many? Yeah.
how many times did they have to update it, or it was for a different use that maybe wasn't quite as breakthrough, but then they realized that there's this secondary
Mm,
benefit that's incredible, but that wouldn't have been interesting in the beginning because probably for a while they're
yeah.
just fixing one small thing for one person, but then realizing that, oh my gosh, there's a systemic benefit. You know,
Yeah.
that's just one where I notice it's like I think a lot of people underestimate how like unsexy it can be in the lab, right? Where they're doing like tiny little things, lots and lots and lots of experiments, lots and lots of
Mm,
failures.
mm,
And a lot of times it's starting out trying to solve one thing and it ends
mm.
up becoming something else.
From the discovery, it can take 10 years until the clinical trial, and then you have patent life for 25 years, maybe. So it's very risky and it's very important and it's very time consuming. And all the researchers working so diligently year after year, improving and trying and never giving up. So
Right.
yeah, it's important and it's hard work.
It is, and then again, like with those kind of 3 levels, you have these, the things that each researcher is doing. I think you were talking about individual obstacles, group obstacles, organizational, and like
Yeah.
at those kind of things, I'm sure there's a lot in each level. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, how they kind of flow together?
Yes, we talked a little bit about diversity and psychological safety that I name as an obstacles, barriers on the group level, and then organizational
Right.
level. I talk about sustainability and also
Mm,
technological advancements. Because now sustainability in this today's geopolitical environment, it has been a little bit down or not
yes.
so popular as it was some years ago. But I think it's still equally relevant and equally important because we have to, if we don't and when we talk about sustainability, it has to go both societal, economic, but also and
Right.
environmental. We should not forget environmental because we are creating an impact with businesses. We are creating an impact, and in order to live long and for other kids and the grandkids to live, so we have to take care of the earth. Then we have these technological advancements, which are wonderful, but not everyone is equally comfortable with them as maybe you and I.
Right.
And
Right.
then as a leader again you have to understand why some people are not, but also implementing technological advancements in a company also it has lots of costs. It
Mhm.
bears introduction costs, changes,
Right.
instance. So it's not as simple as like now ChatGPT is here, now everyone is using it. Yeah, some
Right.
people use it, and those are the first movers that like to experiment,
Right.
that like the new things. They will always try things, and they will most probably continue using it. But some people are not like that.
And also, it's not even just the help, but even the people who are critical of it. That's important for
Yeah.
innovation, right? Because you have the first movers, which help kind of experiment, iterate. And
Mm,
then you have the critics who maybe are going to be lagging to trying it or using it less, but they're bringing up really important points of where some of the
yeah.
limitations are and where the issues are. And both of them really are
Yeah.
incredibly important for innovation.
That's very well said. I agree. Those critical things that they are bringing, of course, it's always important not to go blindly into the things. And then as a leader,
Right.
you always you always have to balance those two things.
Yes, they work in harmony. I do think a lot of leaders, especially with technology, they're over enthusiastic, or they have a fear of missing out, right? And
Yeah.
I do think that you need to have a little bit of that
But
concern for
they're also there to take the risks and to break the functional fixedness and say, no, it's too risky. Like, it is risky, but you have to have certain limits where you could go and try it. And yeah. Yeah.
so I know in different roles, it's so important to like because again, all of this is in a process. I know we were talking about sustainability too. Kind of going back to that, my hot take is I can't really find things innovative anymore unless they have either some sort of triple bottom line or they consider sustainability because it's easy to just be wasteful, right? Have you found anything in your research about sustainability and innovation and how they kind of feed one another?
Sustainability definitely drives innovation through this several things. One of the driver is market is demanding more sustainable products, and then market demands, let's say, non-alcoholic wine or hamburgers without meat because they are more
Mm,
sustainable. So if you are not, don't listen, then you go bankrupt if everyone switches to that one, right? But if you listen to the market, you can specialize and you can deliver to exactly those customers. Then you have also regulations, regulative legislation that set up certain standards that you as have to follow. And then,
right.
of course, at the beginning, you will say, "Oh, this is more bureaucracy," but eventually, you will become more efficient. You will adjust, adapt, and if you have governments that are listening to the private sector as well, how the things can be done better, then it works perfectly. And
Mm,
when we talk about sustainability, Porter's hypothesis says clearly that it helps actually sustainability organizations to be more innovative at the end.
yeah.
If the regulation is, of course, set in a good way, so it's not too bureaucratic. And then we have technology that also can be combined with this, that can help us, for example, smart grids, smart use of electricity, that can, when you are combining those three things, you can come up with very nice new innovations. For example, we have this Norwegian company Flock that is decided to produce chairs without a glue, so they can be much
Yes.
more easily recyclable. So that's wonderful, and it's sustainable, and they brought it to the market, and it worked, and it is innovation at the end.
And I love that example too because it's something that I think people, when they think of let's design a new type of chair, more sustainable chair, you're looking specifically at the materials used, not necessarily the like we're using this to put the pieces together. And I think there's a lot of innovation that comes again in those like connector parts, right? So sometimes thinking of it more as a process than like the thing itself sometimes can help
Mhm.
you see a little bit better.
And here
What
we
are
had the process, right? They stopped using glue. It's how do they put things together? And also when we talk about a market, the circular economy and the borrowing
yes.
economy, like things are changing. You cannot be stuck in thinking how you have been thinking 20 years ago.
So let's say if someone is listening to this and they are kind of building that innovation muscle and they're thinking at these different levels. Obviously, one thing they can do is read your book. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But what are some other things that they can do kind of as a practical application of like a day-to-day thing that they can do? Is it practicing sort of that fridge innovation? What would be some of your top ways that they can sort of continue to like learn and flex that muscle?
Some of the constraints and makes us think outside the box that we have been doing before. The old
Right.
business model was just profit, 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 and then suddenly no, you have to think about, you cannot throw away as much as you did. And then also the waste, maybe it has a value, and it has a value today. Waste some 50 years ago, no one would think that the waste will be value one day. So when you also have a certain constraints, it limits you, but then it also opens up for new solutions, like
Yeah.
the chair, as we said, like not using the glue. How about we stop using the glue? And when you have a product, you can, as I said, you dismantle it in different features on a smaller parts, and you see, can we do without that?
That's also a really great personal development thing too. I think sometimes we think we have to do every single step in a certain way, and there's some things that just, what if we didn't do that? And not in a risk, not to just say let's not manage risk there, but if there is something that you think you're supposed to do in a specific way, and sometimes that step is unnecessary or wasteful, and you might find a new way just in looking at
Yeah,
that
yeah,
process as
yeah,
well, and the
yeah.
way that you approach.
People will not do that if they're afraid, if they have environment,
Yes.
the climate, culture at the work, when it allows them to challenge the status quo, to question the things, then they will be doing it. But if this is not welcome, then they will not be doing it, and then they're stuck in the old ways of thinking, Nokia ways of thinking or Kodak ways of thinking.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of just to go back to, yes, it's ownership, but it's also together. And this is important. You say this in your book that you call it the lone hero trap. What is that?
Wait, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, the lone hero trap is, we always love, when you look Hollywood movies, there is always one
Mm,
hero that is selling the planet. But that's the
right,
Hollywood movies only, right?
right,
In
right.
reality, for a company, everyone has to work, everyone has to contribute. And then, the lone hero trap, believing that someone will save us all, it will not.
Yeah,
It will not. We all have to contribute. If you want to have a better organization, everyone is responsible to contribute with that, to better climate, to be less. If you want to change the culture, and you cannot just say that the boss has to change itself or the leader.
right, right.
We all have to also change and adjust. We all have to be open, and we all have to challenge ourselves to speak up, even though we feel uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah.
The lone hero trap, appointing innovation manager, and he or she will save
Right.
us all. It will take the all burden. It cannot. Imagine like all this burden that person has on its back. Like it has to sell the solution. It has to motivate everyone to believe in it, that it will
Mhm.
work. And then it has to do constantly when you have all the people, when you have some, we said we have some early adopters and we have laggards, right?
Right.
So that person has to work with all of them, and it's draining. And it cannot be one person's responsibility to save the whole company. It's everyone's. All employees
Yeah.
have to continuously that. So they have the job to go to tomorrow.
And also that's like saying that we're all going to do a business model canvas or we're all going to do an innovation workshop and everything's going to be fixed too. So whether it's the tool or the person, that's not how that works. It's really like I think we're kind of circling back to this. It's almost just like an identity or a lens that this is kind of how we're moving forward, and everybody is part of that DNA
Mm,
of this
mm, mm,
next era, if there is some sort of a change or it's established from the
mm.
beginning that this is the way that this works. Kind of again, how would I make a decision as a sustainable, innovative contributor as opposed to the
Yeah.
decision that you have to make? It's more how, if I am, this is my outcome, the outcomes that I want to create are innovative and sustainable.
First understanding, as I said, top management, what does this
Yeah.
entail? And then also middle management, rolling it down to the middle management, to them. So you have to have certain behaviors in place. One behavior is experimenting,
Yes.
questioning is another, for example.
Yeah.
And then also dare to talk to people who are different from you. Like you said,
Yes.
what we can do. I talk with mostly with business people. Why don't you go into different environments and talk to the artists, talk to the architects, talk to the
Hmm.
chemists, talk to the researchers, talk to the teachers. We
Right.
have to, in order to get diversity, or talk to the people who are neurodivergent, who are different from us. Because when
Right.
we are always with the same group of people, we always reinforce the same experiences and the same thoughts. But being open to different people around us, it will open our views, our perspectives. These behaviors, they have to be, as I said, top down, so that bottom up then can be then nurtured.
For the people who maybe are not in their own organizations or they're in either something very flat or they're part of a collective, you can apply a lot of these as well. And also just to your consumption. When you were saying to me, I always think of social media or other spaces where, or even LinkedIn sometimes, where you start to get stuck where you're hearing a lot of the same sorts of voices
I
or
love that you
strategies.
brought social media, because social media likes that we are in our echo chambers. It likes to
Yes.
like lock us in that, and that is very dangerous for creativity and innovation, because we are locked
Yes.
into the same thinking. And I think, as I have been using the social media also all the time, I think it's getting even more and more difficult. Yes, so having a physical contact, going out on a different
Mm,
events when you will meet different and be curious about, Norway is quite different than Croatia, where I'm originally from. In Croatia, when you come to an event, then always someone introduces you. Hi, this is this, yet, and this is this person. And you feel like, okay, now I'm introduced, now I can talk. But in Norway, no one does that. You come
right.
up, to an event and you have to introduce yourselves. Hi,
Pitch.
I never said hi to you. I'm this and this. Oh my God, that's so difficult was for me to do
Yeah.
that. Just
Yes.
it felt so unnatural, but then you have to do that. You have to push yourself, stretch
Right.
yourself out of the comfort zone in order to get to know people. And the same is like if we are business people and we're always in the business finance departments or finance experts, go out and be curious, ask questions, ask people what they're doing, how they're doing things.
Yes.
Curiosity can bring many interesting conversations.
Efficiency is part of innovation, but it's not everything because sometimes we can get over efficient. Like you were talking about some networking event, they look up everybody ahead of time, they have their pitch, and they're looking for a specific type of person to talk to. When really talking to that person that was so unexpected is usually the thing that sometimes brings in the innovation or the different way of
Yeah,
thinking
but
about something.
when they're doing that, they're usually interested in selling. But we don't want to do selling. We want
Yeah,
to explore. We
explore.
want to
Yes.
explore, not yeah. But
Yeah.
that's correct. Efficiency. I like that you brought those two terms to this conversation: efficiency and then we have exploration, because this is exactly what it happens with the big companies. They manage their processes so they become very efficient, and then at some point the S curve flattens. But in order to come with new ideas, they have to explore, right? They have to explore new either customers or new markets or something. So those, and when you're a startup, in explorative mood, right?
Right.
You're exploring. Okay, I have this idea. Will I find customers for this? Oh, I found these customers like this. They don't like that. And then you're always exploring and matching. And then at some point you start selling enough, and then you focus on efficiency.
Right.
It changes, right? And you have to be efficient so you will get the costs down. As you said, you shouldn't be too efficient because at certain points you have to start exploring again, right? So
Right.
it always is a balance from one wave to another wave, I would say, especially if you are a company that's for a long time on the market.
Yes, absolutely. And I do think it kind of we can almost tie it again back to, and I'd love to get your definition of sort of that everyday innovation, like we were talking about, maybe taking a little bit of a different route and seeing or trying to put something together in your fridge. So, how would you define everyday innovation, or how do you see everyday innovation?
Everyday innovation are things around us that are always around us, and we suddenly click them in a different way, and it's useful.
Mm, I love that. I love it because it's both incremental and disruptive, which I think sometimes everyday innovation can be seen as small, but as we've kind of uncovered here, sometimes that's the big breakthrough are the little things that you change, the different decisions, right, that you make. I want to talk a little bit more about digging into your book. Where can we find it? Tell us all about it. And I'm going to be putting it in the show notes as well, of course, and in the newsletter, but tell us a little bit about where we can find that.
Thank you. The book is available on Amazon and all major retailers around the world. So it
I
should
love
be
that.
possible to get it wherever you are, more or less. And as I said, on Amazon, you can buy it. It's a paper cover or hardcover or even Kindle version is available. And especially when you buy the paper cover, then you can get extra resources that are available from our
Ooh.
web pages, like certain definitions and some frameworks, worksheets that can help you with a
Oh,
little bit
we
with
love an
innovation.
actionable book, right?
Also in the books there are some
Oh,
actionable things. Okay, this as a
amazing.
leader you can do these things, these 5 things can help you. So it also has some actions in the book as well, and I have
That's
gotten very, very nice feedback, and the book
oh,
was bestseller when
well,
it was launched.
well, congratulations. And I bought the book as well, so I'm excited to go.
Thank
Like
you. Thank you.
I've skimmed, but I didn't want to do too much because I wanted to let you lead all of this today, but I'm excited to read it and start applying it. And then of course share a couple maybe of my favorite tidbits in our newsletter. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And thank you so much. And where can we connect with you? So let's say someone wants to connect with you or Vinco. Where's the best place to connect with
The
you?
best place or the easiest now to say it's barbarasalopek.com. I'm also on
Perfect.
LinkedIn. You can find me
Yes.
there, and then you have all information from LinkedIn or barbarasalopek.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. I've learned so much today, and I'm so excited to see how everyone applies this. If there's a fridge innovation that you all have come up with, make sure to leave a comment on this or to send it to one of us on social media. I'm sure we'd be happy to hear what you've come up with. But thank you so much, Barbara, and it was a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here, guest, and I really love your podcasts and your episodes, and I really enjoy listening them.